Dzogchen Today podcast.
So, welcome to the Dzogchen Today podcast.
Thank you.
Once again, I'm delighted to be with you, Lamas Pemo and Kunsang. Thanks again to be with us for the third episode from this little series of 3. So, in the 2 previous ones, we talked about pilgrimage and retreats, and we talked about how to do that in Asia and how to do that in the West. So, we'll deepen a bit our understanding about the condition on how to practice in the Himalayas and in Europe or in the West in more general. And so for that, I will present you once again. You've both studied a lot, but more than that, you've practiced a lot. You've done many years of retreat. You've done a traditional 3-year retreat. You've done another year of formal retreat, and then you went to live in the Himalaya for 5 years in the monastery, where actually you started to translate very famous texts from a Kagyupa or Rime master from the 19th century. And you are still doing that today, practicing and translating. You even wrote a book about the history of the Karmapa. And you made us the great honor to be with us, coming from your place where you used to continue writing, studying, translating, and maybe more of all, practicing. So thanks for being here with us today.
Thanks for inviting.
Thank you. So in the previous episode, as we've talked about the Asian way how to practice and the Western way how to practice, we will ask ourselves first, if we talk today about the practitioner from the Himalayas, from Bhutan, from Nepal, from Tibet, are there differences between them previously in the ancient time and nowadays? So maybe we can try to see the differences between these 2 ways, because modernism has came there, not only in the West but there also. So can we maybe start by giving some feature of what the Himalayan ancient practitioner was?
Yeah, when we talk about the older generation of Himalayan practitioners, one has to consider that their lifestyle was totally different from ours. For example, in Tibet, most people were nomads. So they lived in the highlands and looked after their sheep or their yak, and they were outside most of the time looking at the beautiful blue sky in the crystal clear light of Tibet. Those who have been to Tibet know what it is when you go up there to altitudes. And it's really very conducive to meditation and to contemplation. So life was very simple, but there was no distraction, hardly any distraction. So no need to calm your agitation, because, they were outside and recited their mantras, their prayers, no handy, no radio, no video games on the smartphone. So just there, outside, and to be present was easy, the presence of the mind. Nowadays, it's something else. So this condition was really, the main thing why so many people actually easily turned to meditation and had quite easily, the experiences came quite easily at that time. But their main problem was life was so difficult. They had no food. Sometimes there were lots of, epidemics, illnesses. All their sheep died. Sometimes whole villages died, and no doctors, no medicine, no hospitals. So it was really difficult, and they were confronted with death and impermanence every day. And death was something open. Like nowadays in the West, death is hidden away in hospitals. And there it was really something open. You could see that people die and that you have to prepare for death. So it was really obvious that you have to think of impermanence and death, not like in the West. So this was, all these factors were conducive to meditation and to spirituality. That was one point. And so the only distraction they had was, Losar, the annual, for the change of the year. They had religious festivities at the monastery, and at that time many crowds of Tibetans, lay people, were invited to the monastery, went there to recite prayers, or just to watch the ritual dances, which were a big distraction for a Tibetan, something to watch, no video games, but dances to watch with clowns and, masks and nice costumes. So it was really colorful, and they loved it, and they came there, and then they would go into the temple, recite prayers and mantras and help the monks. So it was all a very simple and easy, a very simple life, but hard life. And when they needed, as there was no internet, no telephone, no handy, when they needed something, they went to the local Wi-Fi, and the local Wi-Fi was the master, because he was there to do divinations. And when they had a problem and they didn't know, as they couldn't phone to their parents who were far away, they just went to the master and said, please do a divination. What happened to my animal? It fell off the cliff. And is it still there, or is it dead? Please help me to find it. And then the master did this divination, and by his clairvoyance, very often he found the animal. And if they had to get news about their parents, ill parents, they would also go to the master and say, please do a divination. What happened to him? Will he come back? Will he die? And they were always ready to ask and respond. So masters had this multiple function at that time. They were not only, meditation instructors, but also social workers in some way, because there was nothing else. And the conditions were so much different that many people turned to spirituality, because the monastery was a refuge for them, because they got food there and clothing, and most people didn't have that food. So all the parents said, one son, at least one, has to go to the monastery, because it's like going up. When you go to the monastery, you raise in your social level, because you have food, nice dresses, and then you won't starve, and also you get education, free education. So very different from today, where modern people don't want to go to monasteries anymore, because they don't need food. Most of them have food in the West. But it's so different for the modern world now.
Because you've talked about the practitioners in the ancient Himalayan world, and are there any difference with today actually?
Yes, in fact, it has changed for the last 70 years or about. In the Himalayas, or in Tibet, or in Bhutan, or in Sikkim, all these people, because now they are we can say that modernism has knocked at the door of these countries. So their way of living, their way of life is thought to be similar to the one we know in the West. It's not as in the West exactly, because still the countries are very pure. When you're in Tibet, when you're in Bhutan, Sikkim, the mountains, but they are more busy. In fact. They are busier in a way that they have to think about this, they have to think about that. Well, the life before was very slow. It was conducive to meditation, and now they have to think, we have to do that, to do this. On top of that, now we have the electronics. So they have the smartphone, the computers, and the video games for the children. And so this way of living creates, some illusion also, that illusion that science and to be rich they are the source of happiness. Although we can see in Bhutan that in the countryside of Bhutan, it is very interesting, Bhutan, because it's still traditional when we go, in the countryside. Because the people are, at the same time, they are still living in a simple way, but they have all the commodities in the way that they have hospitals, they have the children go to school. So it's like it's old and modern at the same time. But in the cities, of Bhutan. Then the youngsters, it's different, and also in the countries. So we can see that although they are still, say, believers, we can say there are less people who are interested by spirituality, and we sometimes even say, "Oh yeah, Buddhism, Dzogchen." Well, yes, we believe in these traditions, but it's a little bit old-modish. Is sometimes what we hear.
Old-fashioned.
Old-fashioned. Yes.
And so, thanks a lot. We have talked about the people in the Himalayas, but now that maybe this podcast is an example of that this tradition came in the West, US, and also in Europe. So maybe Lama Pemo, you can say some things about like how does Buddhism and Dzogchen tradition fit the specific condition of the West and the Westerners, on the Westerners' mind, maybe.
Yeah, Dzogchen is great perfection is really adapted, to the modern world, because Westerners who come to the great perfection, most of them are totally disillusioned with the modern world. They have something, they're looking for something spiritual, for something above the material world. So they don't believe that riches and science can make them happy. So it's very different from the Tibetans now who don't know modernism and who think maybe it will still make us happy like the Westerners. So they are disillusioned, so they are looking for something new. And as many of them are disillusioned with Christianity, so they turn to something new. It's this also this tendency to want new things and simple things. And as the great perfection is extremely simple to practice, because there are not so many complicated visualizations as in other traditions. So many Dzogchen practitioners and many Westerners say, well, it's easy, we don't need to go into visualization, although there are in gradual Dzogchen practices, there are visualizations as well, but there are many, many practices without visualization, just, meditation and on the mind. So this is really what the Westerners like and need, because they are already so, agitated because of all the stimuli and too many images, internet, and so they are always a little bit stressed and overloaded with images. So when you ask them to visualize, like in tantric practices or other things, they say, oh, it's too much for us. We can't calm our mind. We have so many images during the day. Let's calm down, just empty the mind. And so Dzogchen is great for them because that's the way for them to empty the mind. And it's a thing that you can practice in everyday life. You don't need to go to a monastery. You can stay at home, do your dishes, wash your dishes, cook, clean, or just walk in the street, talk to people, or just, drive, or even take the bus. You can always practice Dzogchen everywhere. You don't need a book. You don't need a text. It's actually very simple to practice. So that's why Westerners are so much attracted to it. But nowadays there's this big advantage as compared to before. There are lots of teachers, even Western teachers, who teach in the language of the specific country. Like in France, there's Mila Khenzi Rinpoche, who teaches in French and also in English, in some countries. So it's easy to, follow these teachings. It's easy to follow some podcasts in English. And there are also quite a lot of books now on Dzogchen, which was not the case before. So actually, things are easy now for Westerners. If they want to practice, if they want to learn, it's here, in their own country. And the thing is, now that the conditions are so good, ideal, we have to seize this opportunity and really go there and practice. Because who knows? Maybe in 20 years, there won't be any Dzogchen anymore. Maybe there will be, conditions where people are so terrified or so, unstable mentally. That's one problem. that they won't be able to practice anymore, or there won't be any teachers anymore. So let's take the opportunity, let's seize the opportunity now and practice now, because if
Today,
Dzogchen today, not tomorrow. That's why we call it Dzogchen today. It's for today, because if we wait some years, we might be dead.
Yeah.
Who knows? When we are so old, who can practice? Things happen.
Yeah. And so, is it the same Dzogchen? Because it has been present for now more than century, but millennia in the Himalaya, and it's really new in the West. But so, while coming here, did Dzogchen and Buddhism change, or is it the same? And then maybe we'll see what are the difference and similitude between the way how to relate to this tradition in Asia nowadays and here today. So Lama Kunsang, is it the same Dzogchen, or is it something new that it's happening here?
Well, in fact, that's a good question, because often people say, okay, this is a Dzogchen teaching in the West, but it's something new. So the idea of having something new, it means something which has been produced now. And the Westerners, they love things which are new, something they have created. But in fact, it's like we can say that this is the same origin, the same source, in fact, of Dzogchen. So in a way, it's like the teaching of Galab Dorje is there. So for like 2,000 years ago, the transmission, it has continued from the Tibet, Bhutan, on Asia to come around. So this is the same lineage. So there is no new tradition. This is exactly the tradition. And we can see that we are following the three series. We have the Tantra of Dzogchen. We have, in fact, the commentaries by Longchenpa, Jimingpa, the same commentaries. We have the same Nyingtik. And now they have been translated, not all, this is a lot, but the main things are translated into English and other languages. So there are no changes, in fact. So what is important to see that, very important, that we are not creating a new doctrine of Dzogchen, but in fact, this is the same Dzogchen. That's really the main point we have to keep in mind, yes.
Yeah. So with a few features of this are really the lineages and the role of the spiritual teacher, the masters. And it's really important not to try to practice maybe Dzogchen by ourselves, only by book, only by reading by ourselves, but to relate to a tradition, which means a lineage and the blessings of the lineage that are transmitted thanks to and through a spiritual teacher, a master.
Yes, that's very important, because sometimes people in the West, when they do something, when they study something, or they say, okay, we just take books. And then Dzogchen, it's really about the transmission, about the lineage. So practicing Dzogchen without a master, with having the connection with the lineage, in fact, this is not a real Dzogchen. Yes, that's a very important point.
Yeah, and it's also, well, you can't deny that if someone meditates without a master, he can still have experiences due to the concentration that he will generate. But even if he has experiences of bliss or, clarity, it can happen, but there won't be the blessing of the lineage, so there won't be the ultimate goal of enlightenment. It won't come. It's just, you need the transmission of the master. It's very important. The ultimate goal won't come.
We already covered a little bit, just a little bit of that topic in previous episode, and for sure we'll have other episodes about this specific ones. And so I think now it's clear that it's the same tradition, the same Dzogchen in the Himalaya and here in the West, US or Europe. But even though modernity is spread worldwide now, are there specificities from, let's say, on the mindset, on the condition of practitioners in the Himalaya and the condition of practitioners in the West? Are they exactly the same? Not really. So what are the specificity, the similitude and the differences between both? Maybe we can start with what's different, what's common, as you like.
Yeah, as we can say that there is something where they have an advantage, the Himalayans, because more before than today, because there are many translations. Before, you had to learn Tibetan. we Westerners, when we started, we had no, education of Tibetan, so we had to learn Tibetan. We couldn't read. It took a long time, so we lost a lot of time because there were no translations. Nowadays, it's easier. Whereas the Tibetans, they were born in the country, they knew how to read the texts. We had to do all the texts in Tibetan and very quickly, and so we had to really learn to read quickly. And they knew how to read, but they didn't know how to interpret the texts, because the written language, the sacred language, is not the same as the spoken language. So even the lay people had to, even if they could read, it was Latin for them, because they didn't know the profound sense. They had to ask a lama or a master, and only the very educated monks knew the sense, the profound meaning of all the texts. So this was one thing, but the other thing is that the Tibetans and the Himalayans had no doubt about the tradition. Even if they don't practice so much anymore, they all know it's a tradition. They are born into this tradition. It's valid. They saw lots of masters who gained realization, so they have no doubts about it. Whereas the Westerners, before starting to practice, they need to analyze a lot. And they think, well, maybe it's not the right tradition.
You have a lot of doubts.
They have doubts. They think, well, maybe another tradition would be more interesting or more easier. And so they switch a lot, and they're not really in it from the beginning. It needs time. And so they lose time very often before they start practicing. But then there's another advantage for the Himalayans, even the modern ones. Even today, we saw this when we lived there, that they are very patient with adversities, with disagreeable conditions. Because when a bus broke down, or when the plane didn't arrive, they're not upset, not at all. It's part of life. Whereas the Westerners, when a train, doesn't come, or there's no regular schedule, they are so used to everything should be regular and in order that patience is not so easy for them anymore. But patience is a very, very fundamental quality in the practice. So they have an advantage for this. Also, they are very patient with illness, because they are used to see lots of ill people around them, and they don't have so many facilities, medical facilities, even today, and it was worse before. So they had lots of patience to endure suffering. They are not so sensitive as we Westerners are. So they can endure hardships and difficulties and obstacles in the practice as well. Because if you're used to difficult life, if you don't have such a comfortable life, when you practice, you also can face adversities, unpleasant emotions or things and obstacles that will certainly at one time, surge, come up, pop up. This happens in meditation for everyone on the path, but they're more patient with it. They expect it, There is less, I would say, as they say in the training of the mind, in the Lojong practice, there is much less fear and much less hope. So they don't have wrong expectations about the path like many Westerners have, and they have less fear because they don't expect so much. So this makes practice easier for them, because they don't have wrong illusions right from the beginning. They think it's sure we won't have enlightenment in 1 year. They know it's a long path, and many new practitioners think, let's make it must be quick, immediately. If it's too long, they get bored or discouraged. But there is one advantage for us Westerners, fortunately enough. It's that's what the great masters say, it's our ability to understand and to grasp difficult philosophical themes, subjects. So the subject of emptiness, many masters who taught in the West said, it's amazing, these Westerners are so talented for understanding difficult philosophical things, and you can even talk emptiness about So it's easy for them. They ask questions, they understand. So the theoretical view is easy for Westerners because they've studied at the university, they know a little bit about philosophy, maybe they have had some teachings at school, so it's easier for them. But for the Tibetans, this was a big disadvantage. They never heard a talk about emptiness, the lay people. Never. They only heard, under brackets, basic teachings. Nothing is basic in Dzogchen because even so-called basic teachings are fundamental and essential. There is not one basic teaching and one very high teaching. Everything is very high. And so they had these teachings about compassion, about the preparation for death, about impermanence, when they taught in public to the lay people, but they never heard one word about emptiness. Only the very advanced practitioners who went to caves or to retreat would get instructions about emptiness, because the Tibetans wouldn't have understood. And that's why the masters were so surprised about the Westerners. They just said, we are a little bit disappointed about the practical view.
Yeah.
Because the Westerners, they don't, stay so long when they do retreats, or they are more, interested in study, and maybe too much study and not enough practice. So, well, the Tibetans were more, even if they didn't study, they were carried by devotion. So they didn't need so much other things, actually. Devotion was blessing and experiences came.
Yeah, to find a good balance between study and practice can be a challenge for Westerners. Yeah, we really like playing with the mind. So,
Yes.
So maybe Lama Kunsang, you can say a bit more about the specificities of the, let's say, the mindset of Westerners when they relate to this tradition.
Yes, in fact, of course, this is the same Dzogchen as we said before, but for the way to practice it, the frame of mind of a Westerner is different. So, as a Westerner, we always want, something with change, something which is busy. We always project ourselves in the future. So it's difficult to stay, we'd say, really in the present. So it's something difficult, so always busy. So because of that, if there is something, for example, the Westerners, there is nothing to do. Said, well, there's nothing to do. No, we have to fill this empty space. We have to fill the gap. There's always something to do. So that's a problem with meditation, especially with Dzogchen meditation. Of course, you have to be present, but you don't have to be busy on to project in the future or things like that. So that something that is more difficult in a way to have a stable practice. But we study. So with the study, we can understand, how it works, why we have to watch the mind and things like that. But sometimes we go too much in the studies. Like a great Dzogchen master recently said, well, sometimes the Westerners, they try to see all the details and this and that, then they lose time on the details. But in fact, of course, we are used to study, but sometimes we have to go at the same time with the practice. And that's really the most important for the Westerners.
Oh, excellent. You want to say a last word about that? Or not especially.
Well, the most important thing for Westerners is to understand that, I know most Westerners don't want to hear it, but you need a master. So a practice without a master is no Dzogchen. So it's not possible. It has never been. It's not a tradition. It would be something that has been invented by the West, which means that the blessing won't come. And as they say, it's like when you fill a vase and you put it, into a disciple, into a student, and it's really drop by drop. It's an oral transmission, and so without the blessing of the lineage, it's direct mind-to-mind transmission. Who will do this mind-to-mind transmission if you have no master?
Yeah.
And nobody can understand it, because it's only to be done when you meditate and if you refer to a master.
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much for this teaching. Thank you so much for having been with us here. Thanks for our invitation, to have accepted our invitation. It was an honor and a great pleasure to be with you.
Thank you.
I hope to find you once again, soon or later, with us on the Dzogchen Today podcast. So, thanks again.
Thank you.
See you soon. I hope so.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
You can find more episodes on your website dzogchentoday.org. If you enjoyed this episode, please rate and review us on your favorite podcast app and share it with your friends. We will be pleased to receive your feedbacks on podcast@dzogchentoday.org.